After partying on a yacht off the coast of Sao Paulo, Brazilian models Aline Tamara Moreira de Amorim and Beatriz Tavares da Silva Faria boarded a speedboat that would take them to shore. On September the 29th of 2024, the vessel had capacity for 5 people, but 6 influencers got on. The captain would later report that he'd been pressured to allow overcrowding. He also noted that Amorim and Faria, aged 37 and 27, respectively, refused to wear their life vests as they felt the flotation devices wouldn't look good in their selfies and would also get in the way of their tanning. The speedboat set off, but the combination of overcrowding and rough waters hindered navigation. The vessel capsized in a part of the Iguazu River known as Garganta do Diabo, or the Devil's Throat, which was filled with rapids and waterfalls. Everyone on board survived, with the exception of the 2 models. Brazil's maritime firefighters found Faria's body after it had drifted out to sea, while Amorim's body washed up on a beach about a week later. The latter woman had refused to wear a life vest, even though, as her brother later revealed to a media outlet, she didn't know how to swim. Number 10. Anais Hernandez and Destiny Jimenez. On May the 13th of 2022, Las Vegas woman Anais Hernandez was driving her Jeep on a residential street with several youths as passengers. One of the teenagers in the back seat, Anthony Della Torre, asked if he could skateboard while hanging onto the side of her vehicle. Hernandez refused to drive, claiming the stunt would be too dangerous. The 36-year-old did, however, allow Della Torre's aunt, 19-year-old Destiny Jimenez, to get behind the wheel. Jimenez didn't have a license, and she'd also been drinking and smoking marijuana. The group set off with the teen holding onto the Jeep and riding his skateboard. At some point during the drive, Hernandez and the others felt that they'd hit a speed bump. When the group stopped and got out, they realized that Jimenez had actually driven over Della Torre. The teen was lying in the middle of the roadway, unresponsive, while bleeding from his head. He succumbed to his blunt force trauma injuries 4 days later. Jimenez was arrested and charged with reckless driving resulting in death, DUI resulting in death, and driving without a valid driver's license. Hernandez was also held responsible for the stunt, but disappeared, and a felony child abuse warrant was put out in her name. On the evening of March the 29th of 2023, the woman was arrested after she was spotted in the area of Silver Lake and Elmwood. Number 9. MC Lavinho. On September the 21st of 2024, a bus overturned on a highway in Parai, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It carried 43 people, including athletes from the Coritiba Crocodiles, a Brazilian team that played American football. 3 of the players died in the accident and many other passengers suffered injuries. As journalist Isabella Campos broadcasted live from the scene, a man ran up to her from behind, smiling and waving for the camera. He began dancing behind Campos as she reported on the accident, ignoring pleas from her crew for him to stop. The man in question was MC Lavinho, one of Brazil's most popular musical artists, who had over 13 million followers on Instagram alone. His behavior at the site of the tragedy drew widespread outrage and criticism online. Lavinho later posted a video apology claiming he didn't know an accident had occurred and offered his condolences, adding, "For those who know Lavinho, I will never stop bringing you joy." The apology triggered further backlash as it was perceived to be insincere and a shallow attempt at saving face. Users argued that the presence of emergency vehicles and news crews should have been sufficient indication for Lavinho that something serious had taken place. Number 8. Devonport Orca incident. In February of 2024, a video went viral on Instagram of a man engaging in disturbing behavior with an orca off the coast of Devonport in Auckland, New Zealand. The unnamed 50-year-old jumped from a boat in an attempt to body slam a male orca after it and a calf had gotten within a few feet of the vessel. The man then swam towards the animal before yelling, "I touched it!" and asking his companions, "Did you get that?" The others were heard laughing and swearing in the background. Hayden Loper, a principal investigator for the country's Department of Conservation, described the reckless diver's actions as shocking and absolutely idiotic behavior, also offering harsh words for the pack mentality of those heard encouraging him. New Zealand orcas faced a high risk of extinction, and they were a protected species, which meant that it was illegal to swim with, disturb or harass them. Aside from risks to his own safety, the man could have damaged the orca's sensitive fin or scared it into colliding with the boat's propeller or keel. Fortunately, the animal swam away unharmed while the man was fined $600. Number 7. Kyle Spitzer and Scott West. On the evening of August the 25th of 2023, Kyle Spitzer was arguing with his mother's boyfriend, 68-year-old Scott West, at their home in Friendsville, Tennessee. 24-year-old Spitzer recorded the row as it unfolded.
Goddamn brains out right fucking now.
Blow my brains out.
The clip began with the young man sitting on his bed in front of his laptop. West walked into the doorframe of Spitzer's room, pointed a handgun at him and said, "I'm getting ready to blow his brains out." Moments later, Spitzer's mother approached her partner with her jean shorts down to her ankles and pulled him away. The woman closed the bedroom door, but Spitzer continued recording as he emerged from the room and yelled at West, "You're gonna blow my mum's brains out?" Both men were in the hallway, and as the woman struggled to calm them down, Spitzer provoked West, saying, "Point that gun at me again." He'd barely finished a sentence when West shot at his head. Silence followed as the camera panned down and several drops of blood fell onto the floor. The bullet had narrowly avoided Spitzer's head and clipped his ear. The man rushed out of the home as his mother shouted at West that he was going to jail. The woman and her son reconvened outside and called 911. In the hours that followed, a standoff ensued between West and members of a SWAT team who were trying to negotiate his surrender. Shortly before 11 p.m., a canine unit was deployed inside the home but found no sign of movement. Officers subsequently went inside and discovered that Spitzer had died from a gunshot wound. Number 6. Stewart Police Incident.
The police used to help people. I don't remember anything, dude.
Well, that's not fault.
I'm not saying it is, but it's your fault that you have my stuff now.
No, it's not.
That's actually your
You can't leave it there.
decisions you made.
On June the 30th of 2024, a Florida man who'd recently been bailed out of jail became furious while interacting with Stewart police outside of a precinct. In a profanity-laced tirade, the unnamed suspect insulted officers while demanding that his phone and wallet be returned to him, as shown in body cam footage. Officers calmly explained to him that his property was held as evidence and that he would have to schedule an appointment with an evidence technician.
I get bailed out of jail, and I have no access to my ID, my phone, my money, nothing. And you're telling me I have to come back tomorrow at 9 a.m. to make an appointment to get my stuff back that you took?
Yes.
What am I supposed to do tonight?
What option do I have for you? It is our policy. We can't bring bags into the jail per the jail policy. We have to bring them back
That's
here and
fine.
secure the
They're
property.
here.
You can come back on Monday at 9 a.m.
I will.
and
I'll be
schedule an
here.
appointment, which right now you need to leave.
As the tense interaction progressed, further details emerged about his arrest, in which some of the same officers had been involved. In the aftermath of a drunken incident, the man was taken to a hospital to sober up, after which he'd woken up in a jail cell. Referencing their previous encounter, one of the cops told the suspect, "You came at me," to which the latter replied, "I don't remember anything, dude." The man was still wearing his jail flip-flops and seemed unsteady on his feet throughout the conversation. He then demanded to talk to a supervising officer who gave him the same response. The man continued pestering the sergeant to call the evidence technician, resulting in the officer losing his temper and shouting, "It's not how it works!" Before ordering him to leave, the suspect called the cops worthless and made an offensive jerking motion with his hand before walking away. He then lingered in the parking lot and remained combative, at which point the sergeant gave him an ultimatum.
You want to come back over here, you can go to jail. I'm not the one. You dealt with them last night, you can deal with me today.
He was to leave or go back to jail. The man disregarded the warning. He was then swarmed, tackled to the ground and handcuffed by the officers. He kept swearing and shouting throughout the arrest. After he was placed in the back of a police vehicle, the suspect demanded to know why he was being arrested while pressing his legs on the vehicle's door. He was taken back to jail, but the outcome of his case remained unclear. Number 5. Stephen Malin and Ryan Shears. Following an afternoon of bingo and drinking, on July the 31st of 2024, English couple Stephen Malin and Ryan Shears went out in Hartlepool with the intention of buying more alcohol. They came upon a mob that was causing havoc outside a building used to house asylum seekers. The unrest was triggered by a terrorist-inspired mass stabbing that had taken place at a dance studio in Southport. It resulted in 3 deaths and was perpetrated by Axel Rudakabana, a teenager who was born in England to parents who'd moved to the country from Rwanda. Anti-immigration riots, partially sparked by disinformation regarding the killer's identity, erupted throughout the UK. 54-year-old Malin and Shears, aged 29, became principal figures in the Hartlepool mob clash as they repeatedly taunted police and urged others at the scene to use violence against them. Shears at one point showed his backside to the riot gear-equipped officers and taunted them by slapping himself on the buttocks. His partner was equally erratic, and he was struck in the leg with a baton when he seemingly tried to push past the police cordon. In the moments that followed, Shears became further irate and repeatedly yelled at the cops that he paid their wages. While holding a beer in his hand, the man gesticulated wildly in front of an officer with a canine unit and mockingly told the handler, "Get your dog a drink." Provoked by Shears' frantic movements, the German Shepherd then pounced and bit into the man's backside. Cops moved to arrest the duo, but they remained aggressive and fought back before they were eventually subdued.
Right, move back now! Get back! Get back!
In August, both men expressed remorse for their behavior on the night, with their lawyer describing their actions as an isolated activity for them. They both admitted violent disorder and were each jailed for 2 years and 2 months. Number 4. Aaron Packer. Australian man Aaron Packer visited the Brisbane home of his mother Debbie in early November of 2018 and offered to prepare a barbecue for the entire family. Another person began recording Packer after he'd set the grill and started the fire in the family's garden. At some point, the young man grabbed a red fuel container and told others at the scene to stand back, seemingly aware that what he was preparing to do was dangerous. Packer then poured fuel directly onto the flame. In a split second, the fire rose and engulfed the plastic container, prompting Packer to launch the fireball towards the far end of the garden. There, the blaze extended to a tree and several bushes. The young man's hair also caught fire, and he tripped over a garden chair as he ran away in a desperate attempt to put it out. The clip gained hundreds of thousands of views on social media. Debbie told a media outlet that no one was seriously injured and that the family was eventually able to enjoy their meal. Number 3. Adil Rashid. In January of 2013, an 18-year-old man was spared jail by Nottingham Crown Court in spite of admitting to having had relations with a girl in her early teens. Adil Rashid had spoken to the girl on Facebook for 2 months before he travelled from Birmingham to Nottingham and booked a room at a Premier Inn. They spent 2 hours together and had intercourse. After Rashid had reportedly emerged from the bathroom wearing a contraceptive device, he was arrested the following week after the girl had talked about their meetup with a school friend, who in turn told one of their teachers. The relations had been consensual to the degree that both parties were willing participants, but 18-year-old Rashid's actions constituted abuse under British law. He faced a sentence of 4 to 7 years in prison. Rashid admitted that he knew the girl's age, but testified that his education at an Islamic school in the UK had left him ignorant that what he was doing was illegal. In talks with psychologists, the young man reported that he'd been taught women are no more worthy than a lollipop that has been dropped on the ground. He told police that he was initially reluctant to have relations with the girl, claiming that she seduced him After their date at the hotel, he reportedly went to a mosque and prayed fervently. The presiding judge proposed that Rashid must have known it was illegal, unless he was going round with his eyes shut. But his defense lawyer argued that he was naive in matters of intimacy. The judge concluded that Rashid was passive and lacking assertiveness. Deeming that a custodial sentence would do more damage than good, he was sentenced to 9 months youth custody, suspended for 2 years along with a 2-year probation supervision order. Today's topic was requested by Rara Prog, Devasny, and Juliet Westsea. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Andrew. A South Carolina man was left writhing in pain on his lawn after jumping from the porch roof of his Gaffney home in February of 2020. A video of the stunt initially showed the long-haired man wearing a tie-dye t-shirt and shorts while holding a red umbrella in his hand. Someone was recording him as he stood near the edge of the roof and said, "Hey, my name's Andrew, and I'm jumping off my roof like Mary Poppins." He then took the leap. Unlike the character who'd inspired the stunt, Andrew didn't float to the ground and instead landed with a thud. His legs buckled under his weight and he clutched them in agony on the ground as the person behind the camera burst into laughter. Andrew's injuries and whether he was under the influence at the time of the stunt remained unclear. Right after number 1, we will line up our release about when overreacting goes wrong. It's a wild one, so be sure to stick around if you missed it. Number 1. Timothy Southern. In May of 2022, British man Timothy Southern was vacationing at the Royal Decameron Club Caribbean Hotel in St. Anne, Jamaica. The 53-year-old was joined by his sister, children, and other relatives. He began one morning of his holiday drinking beer and brandy before meeting 2 Canadian women who were in a similar partying mood. They were reportedly trying to complete a challenge at the hotel's pool bar to drink all of the 21 cocktails on the menu before midnight in order to celebrate one of their birthdays. In spite of having already had a considerable amount of alcohol, Southern joined them in the challenge. After drinking 12 cocktails, the man retreated to his room where a family member found him experiencing a medical emergency. That person would later describe his state, saying he was making a gurgling sound. As soon as he was in the recovery position, he vomited. I was shouting his name with no response. The relatives sought help from hotel staff. They later reported that a nurse arrived in the room but appeared to not know what she was doing when trying to help Southern. Instead of CPR, she only gave him chest compressions and didn't immediately call for an ambulance. The family member said of Southern, "I got a full look at his face and I thought he had passed away." The man was subsequently pronounced dead, and a Kingston pathologist listed the cause as acute gastroenteritis due to alcohol consumption. The relative who struggled to save Southern's life said, "The service and treatment he received was disgusting." The family launched a crowdfunding campaign to bring his body back to the UK after it emerged that his travel insurance didn't cover repatriation. Number 8. Shelley Vaughan. In 2022, Florida man Eric Addison got into an argument with his ex-girlfriend Shelley Vaughan at his apartment in Clearwater Beach. As the man would later report, 46-year-old Vaughan had been drinking and consuming illicit substances leading up to their row. The heated interaction escalated after, in a fit of rage, the woman had launched Addison's keys and cell phone over the railing of his balcony. Vaughan then grabbed the man's pug, Bucky, and threw him from the balcony as well. The incident was witnessed by several residents and the pet dropped 7 stories to the parking lot below, sustaining fatal injuries. The police were called and Addison subsequently told officers that he was devastated and that the entire incident was like a blur in his mind. He claimed that Vaughan had been violent in the past but noted that he'd never imagined she'd go so far. The woman was jailed on charges of aggravated animal cruelty, criminal mischief, and domestic battery. Addison also filed a civil lawsuit against his ex, and because she lived 2 floors below him, obtained a restraining order that prevented Vaughan from making contact with him. Number 7. Benno Nume. 30-year-old Italian bodybuilder Benno Nume was arrested by local authorities in the province of South Tyrol in late January of 2021 in connection to the murder of his parents. Teacher Peter Nume and his wife Laura had been reported missing, and the ensuing investigation led the authorities to their son. He confessed to the double homicide after his arrest and revealed that his murderous rage had been triggered by an argument with his father. While at their home in Bolzano, the latter had asked that Benno get out of bed and take the family dog out for a walk. When he refused, Peter began scolding him and complaining that he wasn't doing his share of household chores, reportedly calling him a failure. The bodybuilder subsequently reported, "I just wanted silence, so I shut him up." He attacked Peter in the hallway and strangled him to death with a climbing rope. When his mother returned home a short while later, Benno killed her in the same manner. The man confessed to have ended her life without even saying goodbye, before throwing her and Paul's body from a bridge into the Adige River. Laura's remains were discovered in the water and exhibited signs of strangulation, but Peter's body never surfaced, with only traces of his blood being found on the bridge. Number 6. Brittany Griffith. On May the 1st of 2022, Georgia woman Brittany Griffith surrendered to Douglasville police in the aftermath of a shooting on the I-20. At around 4:40 p.m., an unspecified road rage incident had occurred between the 30-year-old and the driver of another vehicle. Even though Griffith had her 3 children in the car at the time, she started following the second vehicle, seeking retaliation for the previous confrontation. She pulled up alongside it near the Chapel Hill Road exit and opened fire with a handgun, striking a teenager who'd been sat in the passenger seat in the face. The victim was subsequently rushed to a local hospital and was later reported as being in a stable condition. One of the other passengers in the targeted car had managed to capture a photo of Griffith before she fled the scene. The police used it to ask for the public's help in identifying the woman and later arrested her. She was denied bond after being charged with 4 counts of aggravated assault, 3 counts of cruelty to children, and 1 count of possession of a firearm during commission of a felony. Number 5. Nicolette Mazziotti and James McKnight. 2 people were arrested in early August of 2019 following a road rage altercation in Greece, New York. 28-year-old Nicolette Mazziotti had been involved in a dispute with another motorist in the area of Denise Road and Hampton Boulevard. As their interaction became more heated, the woman returned to her car, retrieved a knife, and stabbed the other driver's car in the front tire before fleeing the scene. The police were called to the scene, and the unnamed victim initially declined to press charges. Officers returned to the site of the altercation within 10 minutes, responding to reports of a second and more serious attack. 33-year-old James McKnight, whose relationship with Mazziotti wasn't made immediately clear, struck the victim with an aluminium bat, inflicting injuries to the back, arm, and torso. McKnight, too, fled, but was ultimately arrested alongside Mazziotti. The former was charged with assault, second-degree petite larceny, as he'd stolen the bat used in the attack, and was denied bail due to a pre-existing felony conviction. Mazziotti was charged with second-degree harassment for the physical contact she'd had with the victim, as well as with criminal mischief for stabbing the tire. Number 4. Daria Brown. On June the 3rd of 2022, Iowa City police officers were called to a downtown bar following reports that a woman was causing damage to the establishment. 22-year-old Daria Brown had begun hitting the windows after she'd been denied entry due to her elevated level of intoxication. Law enforcement learned that Brown had also assaulted a bar employee, but no charges were pursued in that direction. Nevertheless, officers decided to take her into custody because she was intoxicated and exhibited assaultive behavior. She had a history of being combative towards the police, and efforts to verbally pacify her proved unsuccessful. Brown resisted arrest, assaulting 3 officers in the process. One of them attempted to use chemical spray on her, but the device failed to deploy, as shown by subsequently released body cam footage. Brown then tried to disarm an officer of his taser while she was being placed in the back of a patrol car. She was hit multiple times in the back until she let go of the weapon, but reportedly didn't require treatment at the time of her booking. Brown's charges included public intoxication, disarming a peace officer, and interference with official acts causing bodily injury. Number 3. Killy Nicole Cunningham. A young woman from Monroe County, Pennsylvania, became overwhelmed with rage in February of 2019 after she'd reportedly lost money to a pinball machine at the Blue Valley Lanes bowling alley. 26-year-old Killy Nicole Cunningham punched the machine's glass panel, and in an effort to calm her down, employees reimbursed her money. They then asked Cunningham to leave, but she refused, instead demanding more alcohol. When her order was denied, she threw a cup of water in a worker's face and stormed out of the establishment. Officers from the Slate Belt Regional Police Department were called to the scene and caught up to Cunningham while she was walking with a friend. They asked the woman to identify herself, but she became belligerent and started yelling profanities at them. Officers decided to take her into custody after determining that she was inebriated to the extent that she presented a danger to herself and others. As they were struggling to get her into the patrol car, Cunningham repeatedly unbuckled her seatbelt and attempted to flee, while also persisting in her aggressive behavior. She cursed and spat at officers, kicking one of them in the chest before headbutting him. Cunningham kicked a second officer as they were escorting her into the police station. Law enforcement then determined that she needed medical attention due to her high level of inebriation. The woman kept on spitting on responding EMTs, and a spit hood was put on her as she was being transferred to the ambulance. Once inside, however, she forcefully bit into a paramedic's forearm, leaving a mark. Cunningham kept brawling with officers and medical staff before she was ultimately chemically sedated. In the aftermath of her violent outburst, she was charged with 3 counts of aggravated assault, 3 counts of simple assault, 1 count of resisting arrest, and 3 related offenses. Number 2. Amanda Stanton. In September of 2018, reality star Amanda Stanton was at a co-ed bachelorette party at the Wynn Encore in Las Vegas alongside her boyfriend Bobby Jacobs. At around 3 a.m., security guards were sent to the room following a noise complaint, and Jacobs began talking to them. 26-year-old Stanton, known for her appearances on The Bachelor and Bachelor in Paradise, aggressively intervened. In what was deemed a dramatic overreaction, she forcefully pushed her boyfriend. Even though Jacobs was taller than her by 1 foot and 3 inches, the shove coupled with Stanton's drunken demeanor was considered serious enough for the guards to call the police. The mother of 2 was arrested for misdemeanor domestic battery and later released. As reported by TMZ, the California native and Jacobs were still together in the incident's aftermath and suspected that the former's behavior had been influenced by someone spiking her drink during the party. Number 1. Michael Close. Close to noon on June the 10th of 2020, a man opened fire on a couple with an AK-47 rifle, following a dispute over dog drop-ins on the 3000 block of Fox Street in Denver, Colorado. The shooting occurred in a rock garden outside Michael Close's apartment complex, where he was reported to have confronted Isabella Thallas and Darian Simon, both in their 20s, as they were walking their dog. He'd become enraged that the pet had defecated close to his window and asked Simon if he was going to train the dog or just yell at it. Surveillance camera footage later presented by prosecutors showed Close then opening his blinds, pointing the rifle at the couple, and releasing at least 24 rounds. Thallas, who turned 21 2 days earlier, was killed instantly, while Simon survived after being shot twice in the legs. The police were alerted by Close's girlfriend, whom he'd called crying, to confess the shooting before driving towards the mountains in his black Mercedes SUV. Close was arrested without incident by Jefferson County Sheriff deputies after the police had tracked his cell phone. An investigation revealed that the rifle he'd used had been taken from the personal collection of his lifelong friend, Sergeant Dan Politica of the Denver Police, reportedly without his knowledge or permission. Close had called him minutes after the shooting to say he'd done something really bad and there's no going back from this now. Politica resigned in the shooting's aftermath, even though he wasn't being actively investigated for misconduct. Close faced 22 separate criminal counts stemming from the shooting, including first-degree murder, to which, according to the latest updates, he'd pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. Thanks for watching. Would you rather feel no physical pain or no emotional sadness? Let us know in the comments section below.